I go through that story to say this. I understand kind of where Joseph was at, but one thing you got to learn is not to be as foolish as Joseph was at this stage. Joseph did have, we're given Joseph and all he was and all his grandeur and who he is, and he made some mistakes, but most of his problems were the result of something that, by God's grace, my dad never did. My dad never favored me like Jacob favored Joseph. Now, my dad being that much older than me, it was kind of fun, and because a lot of times people thought I was his grandson, especially as I got to be 10, 12, and this is your grandson, no, this is your son. But my dad never favored me. Jacob did. Which, honestly, as a parent, is kind of unfathomable to me, because I'm not wired that way. Maybe because I grew up in a crazy house. And by the way, I never lived with all 12 at the same time. If you're worried about that, no, I didn't. I only lived with my mom's kids on the Diebler side. But anyhow, it's a wild history there, and lots of interesting stories that I don't need to tell. But what is important is Jacob favored his son. Now, you would have thought Jacob would have learned his lesson, because that's exactly what his parents did. Remember? Jacob's mom favored him. Jacob's dad favored his brother Esau, and there were a lot of horrible things as a result of that. A practical lesson here is, parents, be careful. And try to go make sure that you don't do that. And sometimes kids obviously will say things and say, you're favoring me, and it's not true. But you know what? Whenever my kids say that to me, I always listen. I always listen to what they say, and I value it. I'll talk it through with them. Why? Because I don't want them to use an excuse. They're still responsible for their decisions. They're still responsible for their choices. But boy, we need to be careful on that. That was kind of a side, but it was still there. And we know that this was true because the author, Moses, wrote that. Jacob, loved Joseph more than all his children because he was the son of his old age. He loved him. And not only did he favor him, did he favor him in what he did, and it was clear to all the brothers that he was favored, and even Dinah, the sister. Jacob does it a step further. He gives him a special coat. You say, well, what's the big deal? It was something special that none of the other ones had. One sermon I listened to on this, I thought was pretty good. The pastor said it would be like you having 13 kids, and then you go to the store and you buy ice cream for one of them. And the other ones say, what about us? I hate you. I don't love you as much as him. And just being honest about it. No, we wouldn't think of parents doing that. But yet that's what Jacob did. He loved his son not too much, but in the wrong way. And he favored him, which ultimately hurt him, which ultimately was the cause of a lot of Joseph's immediate problems. So he didn't love him in the way he should have. He didn't love him in a God-honoring way. Had he loved him for the love that that Joseph needed, he wouldn't have favored him, because that favoring really caused more problems to begin with. And the brothers saw it, and they hated their brother because of it. The favoring he did, caused the opposite of what he wanted. The favoring that Jacob did caused the opposite of what he wanted. He wanted him to be he wanted the brothers to look at Joseph the way he did. But instead, his favoring caused the brothers to hate him. Well, then, to make things more complicated, what happens? God sovereignly chooses to reveal something to Joseph that also was going to be tough for the brothers to swallow. Not only was he favored by their dad, but God gives Joseph a special place. In the Old Testament time of God's economy, God often spoke through dreams. Now, you may say God speaks through dreams, and that's fine, and I respect you for that. I'm not going to ever be part of that. my understanding of Scripture, and the reason why I don't necessarily think that God typically works that way today, is because we have the completeness of Scripture. And now God may choose to do that, but typically, those who've told me God has spoken to them through James today, typically what has happened in the dream just simply confirms what's already in the Scripture. So God may use that to confirm. I'm not saying that, but I would be hard pressed, and where I would disagree with you on is if you say your dream was giving you something different, something new beyond what Scripture teaches, because Scripture is clear that we have everything we need for faith and practice within the Scripture.